Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Roy Eisenhardt, and have the honor of teaching a course this starting in April, this spring session, about what I am calling the Asia-Pacific War. And some people would refer to that as World War II in the Pacific. The reason why I make that distinction is because one of the points that we're going to start with in the course and spend some time on is the geopolitical circumstances that led up to the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. And principally, those geopolitical circumstances had to do with the aggressive invasion by Japan of China and Manchuria and some of the efforts to take over Indochina and Jakarta, principally with regard to the latter, for Japan to obtain natural resources. So I want to place a lot of emphasis on the fact that the United States and eventually Great Britain and Holland and Germany were really part of the Asia-Pacific War because Japan's concept was to develop a sphere of influence that enveloped really all of what we'll call the Eastern Pacific. And the Eastern Pacific goes as far out as to Midway Island, just off of the coast of Hawaii. So we will start with that and make sure we get that nailed down. And then the strategy of how the United States went about going from the disaster at Pearl Harbor to eventually being so dominant over Japan that by the end of the war, Japan barely had an air force and a navy left, is a very interesting story about the confluence of how industrialized nations and natural resources and the nature of workforces and the role of technology in developing arms and adjacent technologies like radar influence the outcome of wars. I am not particularly interested in wars for their own sake. What I'm interested in is the cultural and geopolitical changes that wars bring about and the behavioral changes that the wars likewise can often cause if they have a large enough effect on the global politics. For example, many now who are talking about the new sphere of influence structure in the world are really referring to the world as it existed before the Asia-Pacific War started. Up until that time, there were definitely tendencies of the larger nations to view territories as belonging to them, even though they were outside of their geographical boundaries. Today, we are what we call now a world order bound by international rules, and that's a consequence of the peace agreement in 1945 between the United States and the other allied countries and Japan. So the course, in a nutshell, will cover the spectrum from why did the war start to how was the war executed to why did Japan finally surrender in 1945, and implicit within that, of course, is the decision about dropping the atomic bomb. So it should be an interesting walk through a very important part of our history. And obviously, I'm prepared to take the course in directions that the students want to go. I'm not locked into a particular framework or particular syllabus. So we will have plenty of time to explore topics that you as students may be interested in having a more deep conversation about. So I look forward to seeing many of you in class, and it should be a very interesting and iterative course. Thank you.